Here are 10 deep lower body stretches that will help you unlock your hips while increasing their mobility and flexibility. Let's dive in. Seated hip rotations are a nice warm-up to wake up your hips and get them moving. Start in a seated crab position. Externally rotate one hip, bringing your knee to the floor or as close to the floor as you can. Then internally rotate that same hip, aiming again to get your knee to the floor. Slowly move back and forth between internal and external rotation. Your foot should remain planted from your heels to your toes. Focus on having your ankle move in coordination with your hips. If you're having difficulty, widen your position by reducing the amount of flexion in your knees and lean further back. To increase difficulty, tighten that position. Elevated hip rotations, where you lift your hips off the ground from the crab position. This places more weight in your hips. Do the same external and internal hip rotations on each leg. Try to keep your stable leg upright and still. You want to rotate your hips independently, so you'll lose a little bit of the stretch if you allow your stable leg to sway back and forth with your rotations. This position places more weight in your hips while also providing a greater range of motion for our hips to rotate through. The half-kneeling psoas stretch. Get into a half-kneeling position, tuck your tailbone and brace your abdominal muscles, removing any flexion or curving in your lower back. Reach one arm above your head and tilt to the side. Then drop that same shoulder back and hold that position. This is stretching your front hip flexor, or the psoas muscle. Remember to keep your hips in place during the stretch. Don't let your hips round out of the neutral spine position. Your goal here is to remain aligned while extending your front hip. This stretch is opening up your front hip, but also training your hips to remain aligned, reducing lower back pain and correcting poor posture, since that front hip flexor remains flexed majority of the day, especially for people who sit for long periods of time. Deep forward lunge. Get into a deep lunge position with your back leg extended. Hinge at the waist, lowering your torso as low as you can without rounding your back. Use your arms as support while you hinge forward. You want to eventually get your forearms on the ground or as close to the ground as you can. Using your forearms or hands as support, rotate your torso and chest towards your bent knee and extend your arm into the air. Move in and out of this extended position. This is a very well-rounded hip stretch. You're going to feel this in your hip flexors on both legs, glutes, inner thighs, and adductors. Deep forward lunge with back leg lift. Get into a similar deep stretch position, except this time place one hand on your bent knee and the other on the floor. Lift your back knee off the ground by pressing your toes and front foot into the ground, and continue to do a few knee up, knee down repetitions. This is really stretching that front hip and thigh on the back leg. You're also getting an additional strength element to your front quad and back hamstring. You can increase the difficulty here by placing both hands on the front knee. Now your lower body has to do all the work of lifting that back knee with no support. Actively stretching and adding a strength component as such is really what leads to long-lasting functional change. I have a few other moves akin to this that I'll show you later in this video, but let's continue to unglue those hips first with the 90-90 stretch. Sit in a 90-90 position with one leg extended in front of you and knee bent at a 90-degree angle and the other leg extended to the side, also bent 90 degrees at the knee. Squeeze your glutes, tuck your tailbone, and begin to lean forward, hinging at the hip. Make sure you are keeping your back as straight as possible while you hinge and not rounding just for the sake of going lower. Also, your knee should be centered to your chest. This ensures you stretch your piriformis muscle. So you'll feel this in your outer thigh and glute of that front leg and maybe even your lower back. This is another one of those stretches that is highly beneficial if you sit a lot. The 90-90 torso twist. Still in that seated 90-90 position, rotate your chest and torso away from the front leg. Think about trying to get your chest to point towards your back ankle. Do so while trying to keep both of your knees in contact with the ground. You can use your hand as support to deepen the rotation, or you can lessen the difficulty by leaning back. Hold this position for 10, 15, 20 seconds. This is challenging your hips' internal rotation. So you will feel this in the glute coming down the side of your hip and maybe even on the inside of your thigh. Now, internal rotation tends to be a lot tighter than external rotation for a lot of people. So spend some time here. You'll quickly notice how much mobility you start to regain. In fact, challenge yourself even more with these internal rotation leg lifts. Still in the 90-90 position, keep your torso facing forward and lift the ankle of your back leg as high as you can while keeping your knee in contact with the floor. Hold this for 15 to 20 seconds. Your torso should remain as neutral as possible, so don't cheat yourself by leaning forward or to the side to help lift that back leg. Also, you may notice that glute on your side leg lift up. This is a sign of tight muscle, so try your best to sit into this position to keep that from happening. Resting deep squat. This is simply sitting in a resting squat position, fully lowering your hips to the ground. ATGS, ass to grass squat. Now, if you can't get into this position, elevate your heels. If you need additional assistance, hold on to something in front of you. Feel free to combine both assistance regressions if necessary. Now, most people can get into a full squat or come close while doing one or both of these. Hold this for 20 to 30 seconds. You can remain stagnant and rest, or press your knees in and out for some additional stretching. This is a natural resting position that has been lost in the modern Western culture. The benefits of this position go on and on. It leads to more mobile and resilient joints, relieves lower back pain while aligning your spinal column, increased mobility in your ankles, knees, hips, improves your digestive health, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But okay, I'll get off my deep squat soapbox. And we'll move to the Cossack squat. Start with a very wide stance, feet double shoulder width apart, and work your way down to a Cossack squat, which is essentially a single leg deep squat with your other leg extended without bending at the knee. Sit back into this position, pushing your bent knee outward. Now come out of that squat and shift your weight to the other leg while keeping your hips as low to the ground as you can. It's okay if your hands touch the ground and guide you as you shift your weight to the other leg. If this position is challenging, elevate your heels, working one leg at a time. You could also hold something sturdy in front of you to help with balance as you get used to the movement. This move is definitely more of a challenge and requires a deeper range of motion, but it's definitely something to work up to. It shares a lot of the same benefits as the deep squat, but adds a balance and coordination factor, unlocking your hips and giving you functional mobility. Either way, use these moves as an independent routine or as a warm-up to your lower body workout routine. Stay hydrated and have a great day.